covers closed properly and are the lines correct? If I look down the edge of the car, are there any big wavy dents or anything like that? Because those kind of things are going to indicate potential collision damage that could be deeper than just cosmetic. And that could be extremely expensive if you find that your car has frame damage or internal damage like that. Another thing is if you look at the paint, is the paint all one color, or has someone tried to hide an accident by doing like a little garage paint job? One little trick you can do is you can pop the gas cap and you can look at the color inside the gas cap door and make sure it's the same as the rest of the car. Sometimes people will repaint it, which is kind of what everybody knows to look for. I'm looking at the inside edge, which is really hard to see from the outside. So I try to get the wheel turned to the right or the left really far so I can get a look at the inside edge. So even though the tread looks pretty good on the middle of this tire, because it's wearing so badly on the inside, it not only means that you're going to have to replace this tire sooner, but you're also going to need to get your car aligned, which is another expense. Yes, the oil. And not only am I looking for a good oil level, because if there's no oil on the dipstick, then the car's been running without the proper level of lubrication and the engine life is being shortened. I'm also looking at the color. Has the guy changed the oil before? Like, is it too dark? Is it completely black and super dirty, really hard on the engine? But a big danger sign I'm looking for is white, milky oil. So oil should be clear. If it's got any white or milkiness to it, that indicates coolant getting through into the oil system, which is extremely bad for the engine. Usually indicates some sort of like a head gasket leak or something like that. Pressure cap that has a big danger warning sign on it, and don't open it when it's hot because you'll get hurt. You're looking to make sure that, you know, the guy selling it is keeping the car full of coolant, that it is coolant, not water. You don't want it to be full of water. It's really bad for the system. And you want to make sure that it's clear. So danger signs would be oily residue or skunk floating in this coolant, and that can point to bigger stuff like a head gasket break and oil's getting into your coolant, which can be very expensive. There's a few models out there of car that doesn't have any way to access the transmission fluid, and you can't do this. But on most cars, you find the transmission or the transaxle, and the dipstick's going to be somewhere on top of it. I'm looking at the transmission fluid level first. This says that this is indicating the hot level, so I want to make sure that the car was heated up before I really determine the level. But if it's extremely low, like if the fluid wasn't even on the dipstick, who knows how long it's been running that way? That would be extremely bad for your transmission, and obviously your transmission is extremely expensive to replace. Another thing I'm looking for is the color. If it's kind of a clear red, that's great. If it's a really dark brown or a black, that indicates really dirty fluid that is going to need to be flushed out of the system, which requires a special machine. So engine light itself, so there was engine codes, but nothing was showing up on the dash. So what you want to do is turn the key to the accessory position and make sure that the lights actually physically work. So airbag, check engine, and oil are the main culprits. So you want to make sure that the indicators are actually working. And then when you start the car, you know, they may disappear, but you want to make sure that the lights themselves are functioning properly. So have a timing belt, which is a rubber belt that wears out often around 100,000 miles, that if it breaks before you replace it, can be catastrophic for your motor. But to get your timing belt replaced is actually quite expensive. So if you're looking at a car that's around that 100,000 mile range, it's just really important to know what the owner has done maintenance-wise, repairs that he's done. It's really great to see records of that, because if it's not something they've done, you're probably looking at doing it pretty soon. This one may be a little bit more obvious to people. If the car is hesitating to shift into the next gear, or if it shifts really hard and kind of slams into the next gear, or if there's any hesitation, you shift into reverse, the car waits a second before it gets into gear. All those things, especially if it's in conjunction with really dirty or low transmission fluid that you looked at before. So what you want to do is turn the key to the accessory position and make sure that the lights actually physically work. So airbag, check engine, and oil are the main culprits. So you want to make sure that the indicators are actually working. And then when you start the car, you know, they may disappear, but you want to make sure that the lights themselves are better. And some parts of it are extremely expensive, like the evaporator core in this car probably costs you $1,200 to get replaced. So if cold air is important to you, this is a big red flag.